Back in 2017, Dana and I moved north from Toronto. We were working as advocates for the CFIB, Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Work became high pressure, cost of living was ridiculous. One night we sat down and figured we need out. The next day we were each in our respective parts of Toronto dealing with clients, and Dana turned on the radio and heard a man in his 30s shot and critically injured at 401 in Dufferin, and that was basically the area that I was in at the time. So she was trying to get a hold of me, couldn't get a hold of me. A couple hours later, I get out of my appointment with a client, and I hear a woman in her 20s in a car accident down on the Danforth, which was where Dana was. So we basically raced back to the apartment and we decided to move. Within 72 hours, we had a 12-foot trailer loaded up with whatever we could jam in it, and we decided to drive north. We didn't have a destination in mind, and we stopped off in Cobalt because Dana had a family connection here, and we decided to stay and see if we could get a rental place short term here in town. We were driving around and looking in the paper, couldn't find one. Decided to stop off at a little antique market that was in the train station down on the waterfront, and walked in. The lady looked at us. I was in my suit because I just came from work, and Dana was in her suit, business suit, because she just came from work. And we explained the problem to her. So she picked up the phone and made a phone call to her mother-in-law. And the phone call conversation went a little bit like this. She was looking at us and she said, yeah, no, well, they seem all right. He's wearing a suit. She's pretty. She's okay. And they're looking for a place. Yeah, okay. And hung up the phone, and we were lined up with a place to rent at that point, which was great. So a couple weeks later, we're walking back and forth through town. I'm doing some consultation work for people in the area, just trying to make some money, trying to pay the bills. And Dana had a job as a dietary aide at a local retirement home. I went into the post office and I was approached by a lady by the name of Della Dean. Della kind of cornered me and said, "Hey, city boy, what set you apart besides your haircut?" I said, "Well, I'm a musician." She says, "Yeah, you and everybody else from down in Toronto and pretty much everybody here in Northern Ontario. What else sets you apart?" And I said, "Well, I make shoes, but no one needs that." And she said, "Really?" And turned around on her walker and walked away from me. Didn't think much of it, went home to the little house we were renting up on top of the hill. And the next day I opened the door after speaking to Della, and there were a couple bags with notes attached. Della said you could fix shoes. Della said you could fix these. Here's $50 and my wife's purse and a pair of shoes. Can you please fix these? At the time, Dana didn't know the extent of the shoemaking or my experience with shoemaking, because I never really mentioned it to her. So I started working on the kitchen table on these odd jobs, and I said to Dana, I said, this isn't going to last for very long. I'll work on these and it'll fizzle out. The excitement will end. It's a small town. It'll be a thing of the past pretty quick. About a week and a half later, I had a woman by the name of Marg Harrison drop off a pair of shoes that her husband Mike loved. They're called Wallabies. They're a pretty difficult moccasin style shoe with this really shitty gum sole, and I honestly looked at them and I really didn't want to do that job, but I took it on because you have that urge to eat, and at this point we were busy enough. I rented a little space in the bottom of a little craft store here in town, and I was working there a couple days a week in between my consultation gigs. So I took this on and I restored Mike's shoes for him, and Marg was extraordinarily pleased. And Marg is a very, very driven, very loyal human being and has turned into a great friend. But Marg went out and made sure that everybody who could know did know that I was a very competent shoe repair person, even though I wasn't at the time. I could make them, but repairing them was a totally different animal. So after Marg had told a few people, we started discussing this and said, I'm working 3 days a week in the shop and I'm working about 6-7 hours a day. There may be something to this. So we acquired a couple machines and some materials with the few $100 that we had extra. I received a couple orders for custom shoes, and I made very simple Mennonite-based shoes. My training was from actually a Mennonite bootmaker in Southern Ontario. So I took on those jobs. I started making a few rudimentary pairs of shoes. They were all right. They were serviceable. One pair was a complete botch job. It was brutal. I took on more than I could chew, but over time I started to work on the skills, and it went from 3 days to 5 days to 6 days. The shop that we were in was closing up, and we needed to find a place, or we needed to store the equipment and head back down to the city. I was reserved to the fact that we were going to need to move back to the city, and I was going to need to get back into my previous line of work. So I told Dana that night that was what we were going to do, and Dana didn't like that answer, and she was going to figure out a way to make sure that that didn't happen. She noticed that there was a building that we looked at years ago that was vacant in town still, and she came across the owner one day and essentially just made her an offer on the building. And small town Ontario being the way it is, I guess we impressed a small amount of people, and we had basically an angel investor who took us on a private mortgage, and within 48 hours we had the keys to our building. And when we moved in, we had about $115 left to our name, and we had about 3 pieces of equipment, maybe 2 sides of leather, and not one repair job sitting here. But as we were moving pieces of equipment from our small space to the building, which is literally maybe 500 feet away, people were running up and handing us bags of repairs and things to do. Matt, can you do this? Matt, can you help with that? So we were operating here for a few weeks, and we received a call from the Villemare family up in Kirkland Lake, and Ron Villemare, the cobbler up there, had actually passed away. And the family knew of our shop and made a call. And I was looking for a sewing machine at the time, so we decided we were going to go up and take a look at the sewing machine. I said, oh, we can probably take that machine there. That's what I'm interested in. It was just a simple long arm patching machine, pretty standard fare for a repair shop, and pretty useful for what we were going to do. And Rachel and Jeanette, the 2 sisters of the late Ron Villemare, said, oh, you don't understand. We want you to take the whole shop, because the scrappers are circling and they want everything in here because it's cast iron and the scrap weight's worth money. But we'd like to see it to go to someone who's going to carry on the trade and keep the equipment together. I'm city wired still at this point, so I think there's a catch, and I start going into panic mode and decide that that's not going to work, so we leave. But a week later we get another call from the Villemare family. The short of the conversation was, we'd like you to come up with as many trucks and as people as possible, and we'd like you to get this stuff. We'll discuss the terms of that when you get up here. And it was a sweetheart deal. We received at least $100,000 in equipment and materials. It set us ahead many, many years. By this point we were getting enough repairs to feed ourselves, but still not enough to do much more than that. But the majority of the community believed in us. And I remember the jobs coming in that I still had no idea how to do. That was 8 years ago now. And we know how fortunate we are to be where we are today. We've taken that small dream and that small origin story, and we've been able to, through the support of our friends and family here, turn that into a world-renowned and recognized bespoke shoe company. And we're able to do that in a town of 939 people. And we've shipped our shoes to every continent as of 2024. And our repair side is booming. We have repairs coming in from all over North America, some from Europe now. We take on reconstructions and recrafts, as they call them, that other shops will turn down. We love it. I mean, it's what we do. It's what we're going to do. It's how we support our family. And it's what we're going to continue to do for many years to come.